Today I want to talk about Star Wars, and it's been announced that there are some new Star Wars films coming out, and Kathleen Kennedy is looking towards James Bond for how to do the Star Wars movies. Says here in Empire, Kathleen Kennedy is looking to James Bond for how to revitalize Star Wars movies. Now, as we know, when Disney bought Star Wars, they didn't actually really know what to do with it or have a plan for movies going forwards. They bought Star Wars and just saw dollar signs. It was an absolute gigantic cash cow which they milked dry to the point where not many people care about it anymore. Apparently Andor was quite good. I haven't seen it because by the time it came out I just wasn't bothered anymore. Just mediocre or terrible stuff after mediocre and terrible stuff just wore me down to the point where there was no feeling left for anything new, and I think a lot of people were in the same position. Like I say, I know Andor was very well received, but Disney Star Wars has not been the greatest in terms of quality. Force Awakens was quite good. The Last Jedi, followed by The Rise of Skywalker, were both downturns in quality. I know a lot of people dislike Solo, but I enjoyed the film of Solo, I'm not going to lie. It was a fun movie. Rogue One, I think, is the best movie they've done. But I think now they've finally realised that trying to push out one movie a year isn't the way forwards. It's essentially ruined Star Wars for a lot of people, just pushing out absolute drivel and expecting people to flock to it just because it says Star Wars in the name. Because I think that's what they were hoping when they bought Star Wars. It says Star Wars, people will come. But there's not been another movie since Rise of Skywalker, which was 2019. And in this article, it says, as Star Wars Day, aka May the 4th, comes round in 2023, it's now around 3.5 years since the new Star Wars movie graced the big screen, when Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker, hit the cinemas at the end of 2019. It marked not only the end of the Skywalker saga, but also a hiatus for the movie side of Star Wars storytelling. The focus moved to hit streaming series like The Mandalorian and Andor. And they're the only two really it can name, because Book of Boba Fett was an absolute snooze fest and Kenobi was just absolute wasted potential. And The Birth of the High Republic era in a series of novels and comics, which hasn't been received great by fans, but is still limping along because Disney and Lucasfilm can't let it go. But plans are afoot for the galaxy's glorious return to cinemas. Lucasfilm's president, Kathleen Kennedy, recently confirmed plans for 3 new films at Star Wars Celebration, with the Force ready to awaken on the big screen once more. We'll see about that. Now, it's a question of when those 3 upcoming movies are expected to arrive, and as Kennedy tells Empire, it's simply a case of when they are ready. I've often brought up Bond, Kennedy tells us at Star Wars Celebration. That's every 3 or 4 years, and there wasn't this pressure to feel like you had to have a movie every year. I feel this was very important to Star Wars. We have to revitalize this. Well, Kathleen Kennedy, it's took you long enough. Star Wars was never about pushing out one movie a year. George Lucas certainly didn't do it with the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy. And he gave those movies time to be written properly, be filmed and be ready, rather than having 3 movies written essentially at the same time and hoping it works. For me, the appeal of Star Wars was having the movies spaced out so you could get excited for the next one, not to cram as much crap in as you can and hope people just turn up. So this could be a good move. They're doing it every 3 to 4 years, be giving the films more time to get made, hopefully better writing and hopefully better storytelling, more likeable characters. But let's also not forget that Daniel Craig's run as Bond wasn't the greatest. So let's hope that they don't take inspiration from that. But in regard of those Star Wars films, it says here, now it's a question of when those 3 upcoming movies are expected to arrive. It says when. I mean, again, I'm taking this with a grain of salt because let's think of all the other Star Wars movies that were allegedly coming out. The writers of Game of Thrones were meant to get a Star Wars trilogy. That got cancelled. Patty Jenkins was meant to get Rogue Squadron. Cancelled. Kevin Feige was meant to get a Star Wars film. Cancelled. And Damon Lindelof was recently taken off a Star Wars film featuring Rey. So I'm not going to hold my breath for any new Star Wars films coming out soon. It might happen if they are taking more time to develop the films, the storytelling, the characters. Hopefully it will be better than the last lot of films and most of the TV shows. I mean, it took, 2012 when they bought Lucasfilm? So it took over 10 years for them to start realising maybe it's not the quantity of stuff we're putting out, it should be the quality that we're looking at. But I do think it's strange that they brought up James Bond movies for how they're going to move forward with the Star Wars films. There was no need for that connection with them. She could have just said, we're going to take a couple of years between films. Could be 2 to 3 years between a film until it's done properly. Here is a little bit on the 3 films that they are apparently going to make. As for what those films are about, they're set across a wide span of the Star Wars timeline. James Mangold is directing a film about the First Jedi and the discovery of the Force, set 25,000 years before the Skywalker saga. Dave Filoni will continue the Mandoverse era in a big screen event, and Sherman Abidad Chinoy, I've probably butchered that name, will bring back Daisy Ridley as Rey in a film set 15 years beyond the end of Episode 9. It's all about looking into the wider lore and legacy of the Jedi belief system. What we're exploring is the evolution of the Jedi, Kennedy confirms. We're going very far back, we're looking at the present and how we're moving 15 years after the rise of Skywalker. The First Order has fallen, the Jedi are in chaos, there's even a question of how many exist anymore, and Rey's building the new Jedi Order based on the text that she was given and that Luke imparted on her. The Force will be felt for many years to come. So, it's nice to see that at least one of these films is leaving the Skywalker saga. Obviously, the Mandoverse is set in between the original trilogy and the sequels, and Daisy Ridley's film will continue her story about being the bestest Jedi that's ever lived, training a group of younger Jedi. No doubt, the way Star Wars has gone under Disney, all the female Jedi will be amazing, and all the male Jedi will be the ones that need all the extra help, because they just won't be as good as the women. But again, I'm not holding my breath for any new Star Wars films. I probably won't have interest to go see them if they do come out. And I just think it's strange that she's compared making Star Wars films to how James Bond films are made. But what do you guys think? Will you be looking forward to the new Star Wars films? If they ever do get made, do you think they'll get cancelled again like the rest of them have? Do let me know in the comments below. And that's all from me. I'm off to make a fresh cup of tea.